Okay, part two of the Paul Stein murder. I had to tell you a few things that I didn't get into the last video, but I made some notes. First of all, I wanted to tell you that we talked about, an entry point for the bullet coming from the back seat into a taxi driver's head or neck, whatever I think they said it was his neck. Whatever came out the other side, if he would have been shot with by a right-handed person from the back seat, whatever came out of his head or neck would have went out the driver's side window. Okay? And there would have been no reason to clean up the dashboard. But if he'd have been shot by a left-hand person, that would have changed things. Now, the next thing that I forgot to tell you in that video is, and I've told you this before, and it's in my book, all of this is in my book, Frank and Paul were acquainted. I told you before that Frank told me that he mostly killed his friends. And he got all excited when he was telling me that, because he was like, you're my friend, and you keep saying we're friends. Anyway, to kill a friend, he put that in one of his letters. They were acquainted. They had some kind of deal going that went bad. That's what Frank told me. I knew the guy, and we had a deal, but it didn't work out or whatever. So, that's why he chose him. Now, why the taxi driver thing? Well, I've told you this before too. Frank told me it's not about women. Because they were putting a lot of things in the press about how brutal he was to the women that he would kill, and not to their, boyfriend or whoever was with him. He would just get a shot or two, and he got really angry when he was telling me it's not about women. He wanted them to know, and he said, that's why I took that guy down in the Presidio. I said, what do you mean you took him? He said, well, I took him for a ride down in the Presidio. Now, what are you talking about? Well, anyhow, he had done those several murders all in that same area, and he went down to the Presidio, further away into the city, to take this cab driver to confuse everybody about it being not about women. And I can still recall him telling me, that's why I took that guy down in the Presidio, with his New York accent. It's not about women. You know why you have to get angry about it? Because he knew it was about women. Now, another thing that I had left out, I told you that there was a pond or water hazard about 3 blocks away from Washington and Cherry at a golf course. And the thing that I wanted to tell you, I don't know if you remember my Red Ryder video. You might want to go watch it. And I might need to do that again. On that picture of the Red Ryder Ranch, which Frank drew a lot of things on it, and Frank hinted around that he may have drawn the whole thing. I think he may have gone there and got a job working for Fred Harmon and drew the whole thing himself. Fred looked at it and said, yeah, that's great, and then he added the other things later. And I tell you more about that in my book, and why and how that could have happened. But on that picture, in the bottom right-hand corner, is a depiction. I wish I had a picture right now I could show it to you, but I don't know where my Red Ryder picture is at. I got to look around here. In the bottom right-hand corner of that Red Ryder Ranch picture is a depiction of there's a sign that points, and it says that, the river's that way. And these two guys are coming back from the river. One of them, if you look at them and you look at all the, well, You may not be able to figure it out from pictures, but I actually knew these guys, and I saw them, and that picture is a perfect depiction of Frank and Clarence. I mean, John and Clarence angling. John's carrying a fishing pole with a fish on it that has 2 feet or 2 legs. And Frank said something about fishing for 2-legged fish, which means go down to the swimming hole and catch somebody so they'd have a victim. And Clarence is carrying a bucket or filling a bucket up with water from a drain thing there. And Frank told me, it's just important that you remember that. I want you to remember that. That bucket's important. And that's why the bucket's important. They brought that bucket with the clothes in it when they had me in that sawgrass patch. And they and they took the clothes out of there and put them on, so we would have these dirty, bloody clothes to use to do the dirty work, and then he could take them off, clean up with the water that they were going to bring him in the bucket, and then put back on his clean clothes. That way he's not walking around with blood all over him. I mean, this genius planned out everything. You'd think he'd be smart enough not to shoot somebody while they had their foot on the brake, but I don't know, Mr. Genius. The next thing is the t-shirt, and I tell you this in my book. Frank told me that he did not send that piece of t-shirt to the press, and I remember him saying something about writing the letter, but I'm not sure if he said he wrote the letter or part of the letter. I can't remember what he said about it, but I remember he said he didn't send that t-shirt with it, piece of the t-shirt. And he told me, he said, how in a case like that would you get a piece of the guy's t-shirt? He said it would, you'd have to cut it out with a razor blade or a pair of scissors, and that means you'd have to bring that with you, and you would be able to tell that it was cut that way. In other words, the whole world needs to know that go get one of your old shirts. Here, down here at the bottom of the shirt, they have a seam around there. Have you ever tried to tear through that? You can't do it unless the shirt's rotten. I mean, it'd have to be really rotten. And Frank said that. He thought it was funny because the whole world couldn't figure out how they got this perfectly rectangular shaped piece of cloth in an envelope, and it had this guy's blood on it. And even Frank, as intelligent as he is, he told me that he couldn't figure out how they got that piece off of that shirt, because it doesn't look like it was cut with scissors. It doesn't look like it was cut with a razor blade, and it doesn't look like it was torn. He said it almost looks like they cut it with a laser beam or something. So that's one of the things that still doesn't make sense about that murder and that piece of cloth that was sent to the press and to the police. That's more information for you, and this video comes after the part 1 on Paul Stein. This is part 2, and I hope that makes it clear for you.